Kennecott Copper Company said today the government of Chile will pay it $68 million for property nationalized a few years ago. The Kennecott property was nationalized under the presidency of Salvador Allende, who died in a right-wing coup. Since Allende's death, the new Chilean government has paid off Anaconda and other American companies for their nationalized properties, and Kennecott is the last company to be paid. Last night, we began a three-part series on Chile and the Central Intelligence Agency with a report from Chile on the CIA. Tonight, we'll see how and why American policy towards Chile changed in 1970. Tonight's report is from Washington. The reporter is Robert Gorelski.
In early 1970, the United States wasn't paying much attention to Chile. There were more pressing foreign policy problems, such as Vietnam and the Cambodian invasion. Chile and its presidential election were far removed from the minds of Washington's policymakers. If there was concern, it centered on the vast American holdings in Chile, the copper mines and the manufacturing plants. The U.S. government was interested in protecting those investments. As for the election, CIA was indicating that Allende might win, and the United States didn't like that prospect. But NBC News has been told that CIA didn't have the assets or resources to affect the election outcome one way or the other. A former director of CIA, John McCone, felt something should be done. He approached the CIA, speaking now as a member of ITT's board of directors, to take action against Allende's possible election. Henry Kissinger then started turning his attention to Chile, and he began reflecting the activist thinking of ITT. On June 27th, Kissinger, as chairman of the 40 Committee, the ultra-secret top-level policymaking group, authorized $400,000 for an anti-Allende campaign through the Chilean mass media. That didn't satisfy ITT. On July 17th, aboard the presidential yacht Sequoia, President Nixon met with the head of ITT, Harold Janine. Unlike many other conversations of Mr. Nixon's, this one was not taped. But as subsequent Watergate-related documents reveal, Chile and ITT's interests there were discussed. 3 weeks after the Sequoia meeting, Janine met with John Ehrlichman at the White House. Chile was the key item of conversation, as established later in congressional testimony. So in a short time, and primarily because of ITT intercessions at the highest levels of the U.S. government, Washington's policy changed from near indifference to direct involvement. Allende was the front runner in the September election, but a runoff vote in the Chilean Congress was necessary. Kissinger, to block an Allende victory, proposed to the 40 Committee that CIA bribed Chilean congressmen to vote against Allende. Millions more followed, and Gary McCohen, a Latin American expert and author, told me what happened.
One of the interesting little details there is that each time a crisis was building up in Chile, the value of the black market dollar fell, indicating a massive input of dollars. So when the CIA money was released, there were more dollars available than the black market could carry, and you could measure the level of CIA influence by the rise and fall of the black market.
Altogether, $350,000 was authorized to bribe Chilean congressmen against Allende. But NBC News has learned that CIA didn't have the means to dispense the money effectively. Later that same year, $500,000 was spent to fund political groups opposed to Allende. Beginning in 1971, once Allende was in power, $5 million was used to destabilize his government through such tactics as financing a strike by Chilean truckers. At the time of the 1973 local elections, the CIA spent $1.5 million on direct political action and on the mass media. Later in 1973, another $1 million was used to destabilize Chile further. By then, the Chilean economy was in a mess. There were food shortages, and dissatisfaction with Allende was widespread. But even critics of CIA have told me it's unlikely it was all the result of CIA's involvement. Allende, according to many sources, was not an effective president. Still, he was coping with an open U.S. policy of not granting Chile financial credit or aid. CIA, along with other government departments, carried out overall U.S. policy. We discussed this aspect of the agency's role with the Director of Central Intelligence, William Colby.
With respect to the particular thing that's in the news these days, the covert action, these are the subject of individual approvals by the administration in these 40 committee that you've heard about. So the fact is that the intelligence business of the United States is conducted in a manner responsive to the views of the people and to the policies of our government at the top.
It's now generally recognized that the CIA was, in fact, only carrying out policies ordered by the White House. But those policies were not unpopular. Knowledgeable officials say that if a vote had been taken in Congress or a referendum taken throughout the United States then, there would have been overwhelming support for the actions taken by the United States against Chile. Now, 4 years later, with the full extent of U.S. involvement known, many people feel a mistake was made. And they say the main problem is to make sure it doesn't happen again. Robert Goralski, NBC News, Washington.
Tomorrow night, we'll have a final special report on the CIA in Chile. In that report, we'll check into the stories told by government officials about the CIA in Chile and compare them with the facts as they are now known. We'll also hear more from William Colby, the director of the CIA.